Michael, you've got really a wonderful experience serving abroad over in Afghanistan and Iraq. And you've made foreign policy an important centerpiece of your campaign. I would like to ask you, and you've called for the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan and the winding down of the war because it's expensive and problematic for many obvious reasons, and I think I would agree with you, and everyone would agree with you, we want to do that. But you know, I learned something as a physician that when you have a patient in the hospital who's got a problem, that's put them in the hospital in the first place, every day you go in on morning rounds or evening rounds, the patient wants to know when they're going home, and you want to be able to walk through the door with a smile on your face and say, going home today. But you don't want to send them home too soon because they can come back with complications. You want to prevent that. So similarly, we sent troops over there under the Bush administration. President Obama furthered that by sending a troop surge. Both of these presidents and the Congress clearly perceived some sort of a national defense risk. What was that risk? And in particular, why did Obama send the troop surge? And have the risks to the American people been properly dealt with? Because we all know historically we were attacked on our soil by groups operating out of that part of the world.
Sure, yeah, it's very clear there's risks in the Middle East. I mean, there's Islamic terrorists who want to come here and do extreme harm to America, and we have to be very, very forceful in how we protect ourselves from them. The attacks of 9/11 certainly necessitate a response, but the idea we were going to put 100,000 troops into Afghanistan, spend over $1 trillion in a 12-year war trying to put a democracy in that country is just a dumb plan. It's really a bad plan. And I don't say that as some leftist guy who doesn't want to go out and deal with bad guys. I've seen bad guys up close. I've seen stuff explode up close and have a lot of experience in dealing with that. Afghanistan always should have been a 5,000 to 10,000 troop engagement. It should have been local proxy forces on the ground. You know, Obama ran on Iraq is the wrong war strategy, Afghan's the right war, and then he did a real dumb thing. He did a half measure. You know, Petraeus wanted 50,000 troops. He gave him 30,000 troops and then put a time limit on the withdrawal. And we're just really off course there. We can deal with Afghanistan Islamic terrorists more similar to how we deal with terrorist threats in Yemen and Somalia and other areas where we don't have to, try to build a democracy to do it. One of the great privileges of my life is based on my experience in Iraq and Afghanistan, the military now regularly asks me to advise on the economics of counterinsurgency. So about once every 2 months or once a month, I'll go somewhere in the country and talk to a brigade combat team. So I talk to a lot of guys and gals on the 3rd and 4th deployments that are going back over there. And I think about these two guys from Lewis McCord who died yesterday. And it really, they're heroes. They're our best Americans. God bless them. I love them. But PTSD is real. The divorce rates are real. And we have more threats coming from Pakistan and Iran and what's going in Egypt right now. And we just have to be a lot smarter in how we get into these engagements and have people in Congress and the Senate who understand what a warp strategy is, what's a real exit plan, and have things being properly authorized. And, it's okay to admit that under the Bush administration we did some dumb things and didn't plan things correctly. But we have to do better for our troops because this threat is not going away. And how we balance this threat and protect ourselves and maintain our civil liberties is going to be one of the great challenges of elected officials over the next decade. And so I think that's a real asset that I can bring to the Senate is having done those issues and dealt with some of that stuff and continue to look at that. And I really think Cantwell falls down there. I mean, she falls down across the board, but especially on this issue, as do a lot of other folks in the Senate and Congress.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
Michael, you didn't really answer my central question. The central question is, what were the risks? Why were the troops sent? Now, President Obama in 2009, December, was addressing the West Point Army cadets. That's when he unveiled his plan for Afghanistan. And he made a very powerful policy statement that's at the heart of the whole thing. He said, in his opinion, from what he knew, there was a very real and imminent risk that terrorist organizations such as Al-Qaeda or the Taliban might obtain nuclear weapons from Pakistan. And for that reason, he was sending a troop surge, because he felt like that in the preceding several years, the tide of the war had gone against America and the new Afghanistan government, and that the Taliban was coming on strong, and that increased the risk. And he said that not only were they trying to get these weapons, but he believed they intended to use them. That is a very serious statement. And I think that before we craft a definitive policy about which troops to withdraw, at what time, we've got to ask the basic question, are we safe? We were attacked there once. Our president tells us the same terrorists are trying to get nuclear weapons and might and intend to use them. Have we neutralized the threat? And if I'm your senator, I am going to ask that question right up front, and I'm going to want the straight answer. And it's with that answer that I'll make the recommendations to our president and to the other members of Congress what we should do with our troops. And without the knowledge of what's really happening there, I think it's very difficult to set a clear-cut policy. We'd all like the troops to come home, but is it safe? Has the mission been accomplished?
So I just want to respond to that. So as long as the rest of you and I are alive and our kids are alive, there will be Islamic terrorists trying to achieve a nuclear weapon and use it here in America. So that's something we got to deal with. You know, spending millions of dollars, trillions of dollars, and thousands of lives trying to make sure that Kandahar has free and fair city council elections doesn't do anything with that. You know, so again, the military asks me to be a specialist in counterinsurgency. So I wrote for Ambassador Crocker the implications of what happens if America pulls out of Iraq. So I think about this stuff a lot. We're really off base on this issue, and we're going to have to deal with that either way. And again, I'm not an isolationist. You know, we just can't come home and pretend this issue does. We have to be much smarter and make sure that we don't bankrupt our country when we deal with it. But you're right, there's a threat of that, Art, but we're going to be dealing with that for quite a while.